Hello everybody and welcome back to the Healthy Orange Movie Reviews. You asked. This is the show where we take your movie questions and we give you the answers. We have not one, but two great questions to get through today. These come from Linda Ferguson, and they are... What are Michael Fassbender's greatest strengths as a performer? And what do you think is his greatest performance? Well, thank you so much for those excellent questions. This is a question I have been so looking forward to answering because I love Michael Fassbender's acting style. I think he's I really think he's riveting. In the pantheon of charismatic male character actors, I would rank him with Joaquin Phoenix, with Edward Norton, with all those guys, with Christian Bale. He's really I think fascinating and just a compelling and dynamic screen presence. But specifically, what are his greatest strengths as a performer? Well, I can tell you in two words: flexibility and ferocity. What makes his flexibility so great is that while he has a very recognizable voice, a very recognizable presence, he's able to play quite a variety of characters. You know, we may think of him as a villain a lot of the time, you know, because he's of course plays Magneto in the X-Men franchise. He was a slave owner in 12 Years a Slave. But there's he's not always the antagonist, and he's not always a ferocious, vicious type of character either. You look at his robot in Prometheus, David 8, who's has a very kind of like delicate, dainty, refined, neat quality, very precise. You know, even the way Mr. Fassbender stands in that movie is different. You know, he looks a little stiffer. You know, a little more delicate. And he speaks. He very convincingly speaks in a more like formal, mechanical way. And then he did the opposite most recently in Frank, in which he plays a musician who wears a fake papier-mâché head. And that's this kind of looser, more eccentric performance where he, you know, dances around in a field and like kind of rambles with his voice and says stuff like, "Share your music with us," and so the ability to play characters like that, really radically different characters, is part of what makes him so valuable as an actor. He can mold himself. He's more than a movie star because unlike say, like I'm trying to think of a good example here. Well, okay, there are some actors who are really just stars. They act very similarly from movie to movie. You could argue that Tom Cruise is one of those actors, that there's not a great variety between his performances. But don't get mad at me for that one, because you know, if someone has an argument about why Tom Cruise is the most versatile actor alive, then I'm perfectly willing to listen to that, because I'm by no means an expert on his filmography. But beyond Mr. Fassbender's flexibility as an actor, what about that other word I mentioned? What about that ferocity? Well, I say that his ferocity is an asset because while I certainly love his ability to play a variety of characters, I also do think that his maybe, shall we say, default mode of playing really terrifying characters is his most interesting mode. you know, one of the things that's really compelling about him is that there's a real coldness to many of his characters, a steely viciousness, and that's different. You know, there are a lot of actors who play very macho characters, you know, who are very violent and rage-fueled. Think about Hugh Jackman or Christian Bale. But one of the things about those guys, they have a little bit of a twinkle in their eye. There's a little bit of a playful spark, a little bit of just a bit of goodness, a bit of humanity. Whereas in Michael Fassbender's performances, you don't see very much of that. He is very, very cold through and through. Let's look at the final scene, the climactic scene of the recent X-Men Days of Future Past, where he gives this speech about mutant rights right in front of the White House, and he just goes on this tirade, about saying, you're right to fear me. This is the beginning of a new tomorrow that starts today. And what's really fascinating is that he sounds freakishly sincere. I mean, there's sincere, and then there's belief, and you can tell that he really believes the things he's saying. That he is just possessed by the rage of the character, and it's unnerving, but fascinating. And I think in the X-Men film we did before that, X-Men First Class, one of the most compelling scenes is when he's in a bar room and he kills two Nazis, and just the smile on his face as he enjoys dragging it out and preparing to take his revenge on them. It's just, we don't see that kind of like pure coldness in a lot of actors. There's a really and I think that's really powerful how well he evokes that. But there's a bit more to him than that. There's a lot more to Michael Fassbender than that, actually. Which brings us to our final question of today. What is Michael Fassbender's greatest performance? Well, as I've alluded to, there are so many to choose from. But for me, the one that really defines him, and one of the few movies where he was the lead star, is Shame. It is... If you don't know the story of Shame, Mr. Fassbender plays a sex addict, this guy living in New York working some nondescript corporate job. But if you're expecting some sort of a sleazy, titillating film, this is not that. This is... I don't know if the movie is even really about sex addiction in a way. It's about taking us into the world of this man. And why I think it's Mr. Fassbender's best performance is because I love seeing him play more conventional roles where he says, cool lines like he does in X-Men, where he says things like, like, in 20 minutes those doors are going to open and 20 guards will be here to shoot us, but but Shame offers a different side of him. He's playing this very isolated, very taciturn man, and so he does a lot of the acting with his body. The first shot of the film is just him lying on his bed staring at the ceiling, and it's so fascinating to watch his the little things he does, the way his eyes move from side to side, and there's it's just, this was a chance for him to play a contemporary, very naturalistic, kind of normal, albeit very tortured and messed up character. and he does it so beautifully. Just in every little moment of motion. There's a scene where his sister, played by Carey Mulligan, is staying at his apartment, and she's having sex with his boss, and Mr. Fassbender, he just sits out in the kitchen, and he just starts kind of shaking with rage, and his foot starts tapping, and he just the movie is about all those little details and how he plays them. And also this is a movie where we get to see him play yet another very cold, very cruel character, but you also get to see his compassionate side too. And because there's so little compassion in his characters, it's really overwhelming. At the end, in one of the last scenes, he walks through the rain and just stands in the middle of this square, and he collapses on the ground sobbing. And we all know that in some way the measure of an actor is how well they break down. And just the sight of Mr. Fassbender crumpled on the ground crying, feeling finally some grief, some love, is just so sad and so beautiful. It's a moment worth remembering, and it's one of the many moments that makes his performance in Shame the greatest, in my opinion, of his career. Well, thanks for watching this video. Remember, if you have a movie question, you can leave it in the comments section or on our Facebook page, or email it to me. And hope you come back and join us.